With all of the amazing and fascinating inventions from the technological world, there is still a graveyard of terrible mistakes, ranging from nuclear technology errors to automobile disasters. And although people say it's ought to make mistakes, sometimes it just isn't. Today we're going to look at some of the most expensive mistakes in tech history. Let's get into it. Let's start with the tragic tale of Ford Edsel. Ford spent $250 million in 1958 on a new line of automobiles they thought would be the next great thing. But unfortunately, it earned a reputation as one of the biggest mistakes in the automobile world. Ford claimed to have developed the Edsel, a huge gas-guzzling family car based on extensive customer surveys. Sadly, the Ford team had a propensity to manipulate their statistics to meet their pre-existing ideas of what their customers wanted. Things went from bad to worse for Ford after they produced a vehicle that their customers didn't seem to want. When Ford eventually introduced the Edsel in late 1957 on E-Day, as Ford's marketers called it, curious customers lined up around the block to see this incredible new car of the future that they had heard so much about. Alas, when the excitement eventually gave way to reality, customers were typically disappointed. The Edsel was a pricey, unappealing gas guzzler that tried but failed to please everyone, earning a reputation for being untrustworthy. Another thing that hunted down Edsel sales was a concurrent economic downturn that contributed to an abrupt shift in consumer preferences toward tiny automobiles. It was a great mess that no large army of expert salespeople, marketers, or PR specialists could fix. The famed Edsel was ultimately determined to be the wrong car for the wrong market at the wrong time. And after costing Ford over $250 million over a 2-year period, this car-turned-joke finally rolled out of showrooms and into history as one of the most spectacular new product disasters ever. Fortunately, Ford was able to move on to produce more well-regarded new automobiles, like the Mustang in 1965, after this disaster. But that mistake was damn expensive. Another historical technology mistake was the Mariner 1 spacecraft, which dates all the way back to the 1960s. NASA launched a data-gathering unmanned space mission to pass Venus before the Summer of Love or the creation of the lava lamp. But it didn't go as expected. Before the rocket dangerously deviated from its intended path, the Mariner 1 space probe only managed to leave Cape Canaveral. Because NASA engineers were concerned that the rocket would crash land on the planet, they had to send a self-destruct command to it about 290 seconds after launch. As a result, the rocket was destroyed. What could have been the cause of this great loss? Your sure bet is that it was a mistake. A costly software issue was found to be the root of this problem. A coding line was missing a hyphen, which resulted in the spacecraft receiving the wrong navigation signals. What a mistake. It was estimated that the mistake cost more than $18 million in total at the time, which is about $169 million in today's world. Also in 2008, one of the most lethal and costly weapons the American military has ever used crashed because of an error. Although the jet was thought to be worth $2 billion, a small error could still cause it to crash. The Federal Aviation Authority, FAA, imposed a temporary flight prohibition of 6 miles in all directions from the crash-landed stealth bomber as a result of this event, which happened at 12:30 a.m. during a regular training exercise. Some mistakes can be extremely expensive and disastrous. But how did it happen? An unreliable sensor in a B-2 caused the aircraft to stall during takeoff during a test flight. And because the appropriate staff weren't properly informed about a method to deal with moisture in the engines, water entered the sensor, and in the blink of an eye, it crashed right away, and $1.4 billion were all gone. Sensor, and in the blink of an eye, it crashed right away, and $1.4 billion were all gone. Fortunately, the plane's 2 pilots were able to safely escape themselves, preventing any fatalities. Another absurd mistake was the misplacement of the decimal point in math, which caused Spain's S-80 submarine project to be delayed by 7 years and incur a cost overrun of €2.2 billion. Around $5 million was spent on advertisements for this submarine because it was considered to be a huge project. Unfortunately, everything was a waste. Due to the decimal error, it turned out that the submarine was 70 tons overweight. The Isaac Pearl, which was supposed to be the first of a new series of diesel-electric submarines, experienced a serious setback when the costly miscalculation was uncovered in 2013. Without a doubt, NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter mistake of 1998 will make the list. You'd agree that losing $20 from your wallet is definitely enough to spoil your day. so you can imagine how it would feel to lose a $125 million spacecraft. When the Mars Climate Orbiter burned up after approaching Mars' surface too closely in 1998, NASA engineers learned this lesson. Engineers had to spend several months figuring out what went wrong. Finally, they found out that the conversion from imperial to metric units turned out to be an embarrassing blunder. According to the investigative report, NASA's onboard software was programmed with SI metric units, whereas Lockheed Martin's ground control software used imperial measurements. The unsuccessful mission cost more than $320 million in all. This last mistake is very pathetic, as it was fatal, with an estimated loss of $590 billion. This was history's deadliest nuclear catastrophe, and the saddest aspect is that it happened as a result of some blatantly avoidable errors. The mistake led to an accident that happened in April 1986 at Chernobyl, with an uncontrollable reaction and a steam fire that burned for 9 days. Because of this radiation exposure, 14 people eventually died from cancer. Also, 134 workers were hospitalized, and 31 of them passed away in the weeks that followed. The accident, which took place at Reactor 4 of the plant, was caused by operators acting contrary to the plant's policies. Without taking enough safety precautions or adequately coordinating or discussing the procedure with safety personnel, operators ran the plant at very low power, and this mistake caused irreparable damage. So you can see it's not always okay to make mistakes. What do you think about this video? Let us know down in the comments section.